So last video, here's where we got to last video. Here's where we got to last video. We could go to the intro screen, log in. If our password or email was incorrect, we were presented this toast. If our password and email were right, we were logged in. Okay, this is supposed to be our home feed. So let's set it up, throw some images in, and get it scrolling. The first thing I'm going to do is go to the Activity, Home, XML, and Design tab. So we're going to set this one up a little differently than we have in the past. Before, we always changed the relative layout to absolute layout. But this time, we're going to use something called a linear layout. And we're actually going to use the linear layout vertical. So similarly, let's go into the XML file in the text tab here and change this to linear layout. Now we can still get rid of all the padding here. And I'm going to get rid of that Hello World text view. Let's get this on one line so we can see what's going on. One thing I'm going to add is we need to tell the linear layout what kind of linear layout it's going to be. Is it going to be a horizontal or a vertical layout? I can select between a vertical and horizontal layout by adding Android orientation and then selecting vertical or horizontal. For this one, I want a vertical layout. Okay, now the first thing we're going to do is add an action search bar at the very top. This is going to look very familiar to the other image views we've done in the past, only instead of covering the whole screen, this is just going to cover a portion. So let's add an image view, drag it into our linear layout, and then assign it a source, SRC. So for this one, I'm going to go down here and find Home Action Bar. And I'm going to select that. Okay, it looks great, but the problem is it's not at the top. It's kind of in the middle. It's like the box is too big. So we can solve that very easily. If we go here on the right in our properties and we select Adjust View Bounds, then voila. The view bounds now fit exactly around the image. Okay, the next thing I want is I want scrollable content in the middle here. So I'm going to go down to an area we haven't talked about before, which is called containers, and put in a scroll view. And we have a horizontal scroll view for going sideways. This one we want to use the up and down scroll view. So I'm going to drag that into the linear layout. Notice that it's nested here in line with the image 2 and then the scroll view. This means that the scroll view will sit right at the bottom of the image view. So for the scroll view, I'm going to set the width to match parent, and then the height to wrap content. Now, we don't have any content in it yet because we haven't added it. Now, we don't have any content in it yet because we haven't added any image views. So let's go ahead and do that now. In order to see how many image views I need to add, let's look at our drawables and see how many images we have in our feed. Okay, so we have home feed 1, 2, 3, 4, and all the way down to 7. So I'm going to go ahead and add 7 image views. Let's go back to the Home XML design. And from our widgets, I'm going to select image view, drag 1 in. Notice how I'm dragging into the scroll view. Okay, so the scroll view allows us to have lots of stuff in a view and then scroll up and down. But in order to stack more than one image, I'm going to need to use another vertical layout. So I'll drag a linear vertical layout. Kingsley. Okay. Now the scroll view is going to allow us to scroll up and down to see any of our view that doesn't fit on the screen at the same time. But in order to add multiple image views, I'm going to need to add a linear layout vertical to our scroll view. Notice how I'm inserting it here to the scroll view. I want it to be nested in the scroll view, not the linear layout, but the scroll view here. Okay, so now once I have that, I can go and add our image views. Let's see how many image views we're going to need to add. If I go to Drawable, I can see here are my home feed images that I'm going to add. And it looks like I've got 7 of them. So let's go ahead and go back to our home activity layout. And we're going to drag and drop 7 image views. So these image views are not going to go into the scroll view. They're going to go into the linear layout. So they're nested yet again in the linear layout. So I have image view 1 there. It's called image view 3 because it's my 3rd image view total. But in here, it's my 1st image view that we're adding to our linear layout. So add another one. There's 4. So 6, and then one more for 7. Okay, let's add some images to our image views. So, just like we've done before, I'm going to click on this image view, scroll down here to SRC source, and click that box. Now let's find our home feed. Here we go, home feed 1. Okay, so now notice, just like when we added the action bar, we need to adjust the view bounds so it fits snugly around the image. So if I go to adjust view bounds, there we go. All right, let's add the other images. So one trick I find is that even though we need to adjust view bounds for all of them, it's easier just to add all the sources first and then go back and add the check mark to the adjust view bounds. So make sure I've selected the next image view, source. So this one's going to be home feed number 2. Let's go to the next one. This is going to be home feed 3. This one's going to be home feed 4. Home feed 5. Almost there, 2 more. You'll kind of start to get a rhythm after a while. Home feed 6. And home feed 7. Now, another one too is if I wanted to, I can type in up here AST home, and that'll take me, it'll search there. So if I'm having trouble finding it, I can't, and I know the name, I can type it in there. Okay. Now, let's start at this one and adjust view bounds. See, I like to do the same thing for the multiple ones because as I switch, my properties tray stays at the same thing. So I don't have to keep scrolling that. Okay, great. Now I have all my image views and they should be scrollable. The scroll view kind of just works automatically if you set it up right. Now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add a tab bar here to the bottom, the navigation tab bar. So let me close this here. And the tab bar is going to be below our scroll view. Our scroll view is going to fit in between the action bar and the tab bar. So for the scroll view, we were able to use a linear layout to stack things vertically because it was a vertical linear layout. What I'm going to do now is add a linear layout, but horizontal in order to stack our buttons sideways. Now, it's important to know where to nest this. Do our buttons go in the scroll view? No. Do they go in the image view? No. They're going to go in the linear layout, our original linear layout. We want it at the bottom. Now, if I drop it right into the linear layout, it's going to automatically place it at the bottom. And you can see by the indentation that this linear layout horizontal is nested in the linear layout vertical, and it has the same indentation as the scroll view and image view because that's how we have them stacked, right? Image view, that's this. Scroll view, that's this. And now we're going to put the buttons on the bottom here. So we have 3 buttons. We're going to need 3 image views for those. So let's drag 3 image views. 1, 2, 3 image views. Okay, now we can't see anything yet because again, we don't have any source. So on our image views, we're going to go to the source, click here, and we're going to look for our nav tabs. Now, this says nav1 home active, nav1 home passive. Active means that's the picture of the button that's selected. Passive means it's not selected. So if we're on the home screen, our home button is going to be active, where if we weren't, it would be passive. So right now, we're going to have the active home button. Okay. Now, it's there, but it's below the scroll view. Now, what's going on with that? We have to do one more setting in our XML file to make the scroll view adjust so the action bar fits on top and the tab bar fit on the bottom. We want to make those have priority. And the way we do that is by going to text, we go to our scroll view, and in here, we're going to add one more little tag here. And it's going to be called layout weight. That's how we set the priority of who gets what size first. So when we say this is 1, the scroll view gets last priority. So what that means is that it's going to add this first. Okay, now we lost our scroll view completely. Let's see what's wrong with that. Let me go to our scroll view size. Okay, now the height is wrap content. Let's set the height to match parent. Okay, that didn't fix that. Let's set it to 0. Okay, and that didn't fix that either. So let's see. Okay, so that, now we can see the button. Okay, so now we can see the button, but obviously this button field is much too big. In fact, the button's too big itself. We're gonna have to resize that. But for now, let's set the height to wrap content. That'll at least make it fit right around the button. Okay, good. So now we got our scroll view back, but our button is too big. What we need to do now is we need to adjust the width to an absolute width so we can fit the 3 buttons. Get off here. Get off here. You cannot be on here. This is off limits for you. Okay? Off limits. Not okay. Do I need to put this here? Okay. Okay, so we're really, now we need to set an absolute width for our button image view. So I'm going to go to make sure my button is selected, go to the width and type 128. Okay, good. That looks like a better size for a button. Now, how do we get the image view to wrap closely around our image? Adjust view bounds. There we go. Okay, let's add our other image views and do the same thing. So now we'll assign sources to the rest of the image views. This one is going to be nav search 2 passive, because this one's not the one that's selected. Okay, little big, so width 128 and adjust view bounds. Awesome. Let's set the next one. Source. And nav3 passive. Now this one we don't need to set the width because it only has that much width available to it. So for this one we can just set adjust view bounds. And there we go. Let's run this and see how it looks. Kingsley, you gotta get down, bud. I'm filming. Stop, please. Go elsewhere for now. Okay, you gotta go over there. All right, let's check this out. All right, look at this. Now we've got our nice scroll view here, and we can scroll through all our content all the way to the bottom. This is looking great. Now we just need to add the search tab.